1974, US Secretary of Agriculture, Earl Butz, infamously declared that food is a weapon. It is one of our main negotiating tools. Today, that brutal logic is unfolding in real time. Palestinians are being deliberately starved to death. According to the UN World Food Programme, 500,000 Palestinians are enduring famine-like conditions in Gaza, while the remaining population is facing emergency level of hunger. And over 300,000 children, so the entire population under 5, are at risk of acute malnutrition. Yasmin Al-Hassan from the Union of Agricultural Work Committees in Palestine weighs in on the ongoing situation.
There are not words strong enough to describe the level of catastrophe and that we are witnessing. I mean, myself, who is here in the West Bank, I can't even relay or properly understand the gravity of the situation. The Gaza Strip has been undergoing genocide and very rapid ethnic cleansing. Not just since the genocide began in October 2023, but for the past 2 decades, almost 2 decades of being under Israeli siege and suffocated by the Israeli occupation. But of course, this escalated dramatically when the Israeli genocidal war began in October 2023 and is continuing until now. So through systematic violence and resource blockades and very targeted destruction of infrastructure and farmland, the Israeli occupation has manufactured and continues to maintain right now a human-made famine in the Gaza Strip. Palestinian farmers, the stewards of the land, the lifeline for food production, are not able to care for the land, are not able to produce food for our communities. And this targeting, disruption, and destruction of Palestinian food systems, it is a tactical strategy of Israeli settler colonialism. It is attempting to sever the indigenous Palestinian relationship with and interdependence on the land.
Settler colonialism follows a clear blueprint: cut off access to resources, sever the bond between people and land, and leave them with no means to survive except under the occupier's control. In 2008, a leaked Israeli government document revealed that officials had calculated the bare minimum number of calories required to keep Palestinians in Gaza alive. As one senior advisor to then Prime Minister Ehud Olmert bluntly admitted, the idea is to put the Palestinians on a diet, but not to make them die of hunger. This strategy of calibrated deprivation has taken many forms over the years, and it's not limited to Gaza, but to the West Bank as well.
The Gaza Strip and the West Bank of Palestine are both enduring different manifestations of the same systems of oppression, the same systems of settler colonialism. And they use the same tactics, but in different manifestations. So we are both experiencing systematic violence, resource blockades, targeted destruction of farmland and infrastructure, land theft. And the Israeli occupation is manufacturing severe food insecurity in the West Bank of Palestine. And the long-standing structural violence has been exacerbated since the genocide in the Gaza Strip began, where in 2024 alone, the Israeli occupation stole more land in the West Bank of Palestine than it had the previous 20 years combined. This is an unfathomable scale of land theft. And now in 2025, the Israeli occupation is on track to surpass that significantly. The same goes for Israeli settler violence, where since the genocide began, Israeli settler violence in the West Bank, which targets strategically rural communities in Area C of the West Bank, hurting communities who are food producers, land workers. These Israeli settler attacks have also been reaching record highs since the genocide began, and again this year is on track to surpass the records that it has already been made the previous years. This is all part of the Israeli occupation strategy to take our land. Again, we go back to the question of, if a people cannot sustain themselves on their land, then how will they remain? Which is why the Israeli occupation utilizes this tactic of disrupting our food systems, of trying to take control of our food systems. So in the West Bank, we also have around 900 movement obstacles, is what the UN calls it, that can be checkpoints or roadblocks or gates or whatever that the Israeli occupation uses to control our movement. So we are besieged. We have the settler violence. We have constant poisoning of crops, uprooting trees, destruction of agricultural infrastructure, homes. We're also at a record high of forced displacement here in the West Bank. And all of this is happening with total impunity.
The impunity Israel enjoys is the product of a global system designed to protect settler colonial powers. The states that defend Israel's crimes are in truth defending their own legacy. In 1882, Canada's first Prime Minister, John A. Macdonald, openly bragged to the House of Commons about starving Indigenous people into submission. He said, "We are doing all we can to refuse food to Indians who are on the verge of starvation to reduce the expense." This forced many Indigenous communities in the Canadian plains to survive on dogs, horses, and poisoned wolf carcasses. The US applied the same logic through ecological destruction. Throughout the 19th century, the US government orchestrated the near-total extermination of the buffalo, a central source of food for many indigenous people. From herds of 60 million, fewer than 100 remained by 1889. As one US Army colonel ordered, "Kill every buffalo you can. Every buffalo dead is an Indian gone." Of course, this went hand in hand with scorched earth campaigns, from burning of crops, uprooting gardens, slaughtering livestock, and razing entire villages. So the tactics Israel uses today are neither new nor unique. They align entirely with those of its allies.
The Palestinian struggle is not isolated. We do not exist in a vacuum. No struggle exists in a vacuum. And our oppression does not exist in a vacuum either. All marginalized communities around the world are experiencing different manifestations of the same systems of oppression, whether it be colonialism, imperialism, capitalism, neoliberal economic systems, extractivism, racism, xenophobia, whatever it may be, these systems are intertwined. And if you begin to unravel one of them, they all start to fall apart. And it's really important to look at our liberation as tied, not just our oppression. Our oppression is tied and connected, yes, and so is our liberation. For me to be free means that you are free, means that they are free, means that we are free collectively. And when we're thinking about liberation, when we're thinking about a liberated future, we can't be individualists in our imaginations of liberated futures. It is necessarily a collective practice. It is not a place we arrive at, but it is a practice that we collectively engage in. And that's part of the significance of something like Levée Campesina, which is necessarily an internationalist, a global movement of peasants around the world who are all experiencing different marginalizations, but we can point to the systems that produce them and reproduce them and allow them to continue. And as we say in Levée Campesina, globalize the struggle and globalize hope. And that is what we're able to do. And so in Palestine, when we look towards the indigenous people of Turtle Island or North America and the struggles that they continue to experience and the genocide that they had experienced, or when we look to the people of South Africa and how they experienced colonization and apartheid and are still struggling to move towards their liberation. When we look at the people all across the global South and marginalized communities in the global North who are struggling for their liberation, we don't see these as separate from our struggle. It is one struggle. And in order for one of us to be free, we all must be free. In order for us to combat one part of our oppression, we must combat all of it. And that can sometimes feel like a very, very big task, a big feat. And it can be daunting. We can, sometimes it can feel like we're drowning in the weight or the gravity of it. But at the same time, when we look at it as our liberation is connected, not just our oppressions, it is also very uplifting, where we begin to understand how all of us across the globe are connected. And when we have practical manifestations of this connection, like La Via Campesina, for example, we really begin to understand the power that we as the global masses have, and how we can utilize and strengthen that collective power when we are connected and working together.
The fight for justice in one place is tied to the fight for justice everywhere. And at the heart of every struggle is the fight for land. To reclaim the land is to reclaim the very foundations of life. And at the core of that is our food. The way we grow, prepare, and share it reflects who we are, where we come from, and how we relate to the land. It is inseparable from our identity, geography, and culture. When cared for, the land cares for us in return.
So we're very intentional in saying food sovereignty, not food security. And the reason we do this, maybe the easiest explanation is, if we had sovereignty over our land and over our natural resources, we would be food secure. It's not a matter of availability of resources. If we had sovereignty to be stewards of our land in our full capacity, there would be enough food. Our land provides us more than enough to be able to sustain ourselves. It is a matter of our sovereignty to be able to do so. And as we had discussed earlier, the Israeli occupation's goal as a settler colony is to take the land. And they do this by disrupting our ability to sustain ourselves on our land, by disrupting our sovereignty. La Via Campesina defines food sovereignty as the right of peoples to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and the right to define their own food and agricultural systems. So this puts the aspirations and needs of those who produce, distribute, and consume food at the heart of the food systems and policies, rather than the demands of markets, corporations, empire. And this defends the interest and inclusion of the next generation as well, of our descendants. This offers a strategy to resist and dismantle the current corporate trade and food regimes, the directions for food, farming, pastoral, and fishery systems, as determined by local producers and users. And this is what we are struggling towards.
Food sovereignty is one path among many towards freedom. And we must remember that the tools of coercion aren't always as visible as they appear today. They sometimes show up in more insidious forms. From land grabs by multinational corporations to industrial agriculture, rigged trade deals, sanctions, and so-called development schemes that entrench exploitation. All of which we will unpack together in the episodes ahead.